the Zone welcomes you to countdown to the 2023 NFL regular season schedule release, and more importantly, the Titans schedule release. I'm Rhett Bryan, joined by Joe Hunk, and we're going to talk about some of the reported leaks. We're going to talk about several different things, AFC South transactions and what the division looks like, and what the schedule could end up being in this thing before it officially drops at 7 o'clock, and we're leading you into Westwood One's coverage of a 2-hour special you can hear on the Zone starting at 7 with Scott Graham and company. Westwood One doing that for the first time ever. Joe, thanks for coming back from Mount Juliet.
Yes.
And joining me here.
And I'm excited because of the schedule release and because this is the first time that we kind of get to lay out the blueprint. What's going to happen? We already know about the London game, but
that's right.
Where we're going week one, where we're going, all these different directions of where fans can start getting tickets and start scheduling games and trips and all this. Like, this is why it's awesome.
You doggone right. And I'm glad you mentioned London because coming up in the next segment, we're going to have a longtime friend of Titans Radio. It's a good friend, Anthony Wooten, who is the host of the Transatlantic Sports Show and is also an NFL presenter for BBC. He is a London resident, and he's going to talk to us about what we can expect in this game. And what I mean by that is the Titans have never played in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. When they went 5 years ago, they played at Wembley, and Tottenham Hotspur, due to some delays, it was supposed to be open by then, but it was not completed and open until 2019. He's going to give us kind of an audio walkthrough of what fans who are going to travel to this game, Titans fans, can expect when they get off of the tube and all the train stations to enjoy an awesome NFL game. I'm very interested by the stadium part of this because it's 62,000 seats, 62,850, I think, roughly what the Titans' new stadium's going to be. So I'm interested to see how that thing's laid out and made up. All right, we're going to get into the early leaks in just a moment. Some breaking news from the Titans as we come on the air. Via the team, they have made the following transactions. They have agreed to terms with 3 of the 6 draft picks. That includes the 5th-rounder tight end from Cincinnati, Josh Wiley, the 6'7", 248-pounder. And then their 186th overall pick in round 6, Jalen Duncan, the tackle from Maryland, and the local home guy, Colton Dowell, wide receiver from UT Martin via Wilson Central and in Lebanon, the 7th-round pick at pick 228. They signed half their draft class. So a lot of stuff going on with the Titans tonight as we get ready for their schedule release at 7 o'clock and the rest of the league then. All right, so Joe Hunk, let's kind of go over what we have seen so far in schedule leaks. And the one that is the most – now, look, we got to be careful out there, everybody listening, driving home, because – there have been trolls and clowns who have put all this stuff out, and then it turns out they weren't anything, and they got all these followers. Anyway, I just follow what I've always been taught, and that's to look at multiple sources. And I saw multiple sources out of New Orleans say that the Saints will open the regular season at home September the 10th at the New Orleans Superdome against the Tennessee Titans. So with that in mind, that means that Tajay Spears, 3rd-round pick from Tulane, will begin his career very close to Ponchatoula, Louisiana, where he's from.
Yeah, it's going to be a home game for him. He's going to have to get some extra tickets. And the other part with this for Titans fans is you're going to get to face the Saints, but it's going to be Derek Carr in probably his very first snap as a New Orleans Saint because he's most likely not going to take anything in the preseason.
That's true.
So you're now going up against an offense that may not be able to click as well. It's one of those situations with some of these teams, the Panthers, the Saints, you can even look at the Colts, when you're going to get them early on in the season could benefit you because of the fact of these are new players and new offenses that may not be settled in and have that flow that you're looking to see. This could be an advantage for Tennessee.
Hunk, we see it every year. There's sloppy football in September because of the things that you just outlined. There are veterans who don't play much in the preseason. There's only 3 preseason games. And you're right. If you can find a way to play some halfway decent football in September, you can help yourself in November and December if you're trying to make a run. Another one I've seen reported is week 2, September the 17th, at home against the Los Angeles Chargers at Nissan Stadium. Of course, we knew that was going to be a home opponent. Another one I have seen reported by multiple places is that week 9 a Thursday night football game. So that is reported as the leaked out as the first primetime game that we have thought anything about at Pittsburgh at Acrisure Stadium in Week 9. We'll see if that holds true. And then multiple sources from Carolina saying the Panthers come here in Week 12. So we'll see what happens there. Let's give them what we knew already in terms of the home and away opponents. This is the year, because of a 17-game schedule, that now the AFC has the advantage for home field games. And the way they do that every other year is, whoever has the home field advantage for regular season games, then you play more road games in the preseason, and then vice versa. So if you're on the short end of the stick, like the AFC was last year, you only play one road game in the preseason, have 2 preseason home games. So the division, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Houston. We know the Ravens in Week 6, as you mentioned, October the 15th at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. That's Sunday in Week 6. The Cincinnati Bengals, the Carolina Panthers, the Atlanta Falcons, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Seattle Seahawks. Those are all at home at Nissan Stadium with the exception of the Ravens game. And then the away games, again, the division, Indy, Jacksonville, Houston. On the road at Cleveland, at Pittsburgh, New Orleans, Tampa, Miami. So the Titans play the NFC South division. They play a different NFC conference every 4 years. And so that's how that lines up. So one of the things, Hunk, that I thought was interesting, last year the Titans, and this is even including the trip they made to SoFi to play the Chargers, they only traveled 12,484 miles. This year they're traveling 17,022 miles, but much of that is due to the fact that they're going overseas because they don't have a trip further west than Houston this year.
Yeah, you do not play in the Pacific time zone.
No.
At all.
No. So that is the bulk of that. So you're saying their road schedule mileage wise is very comparable to what they had last year, and probably even less if you take the London trip out. I didn't even look to see how long that is.
Well, looking at the away games again, you take the home game out. What is your furthest game? Cleveland? Would that be the furthest one possibly? Pittsburgh?
Furthest north?
Yeah, or our furthest period as far as distance from Nashville International Airport.
Houston is the furthest one west.
Right.
And the furthest one
south is going to be
north-
Miami.
Yeah, that's correct. And the furthest one north would be Cleveland or Pittsburgh, one of those two.
So the traveling for this outside of the Week 6, which nothing has been confirmed, but historically, unless you are the Jags this season, you play in London on 1 week, the next week you get that week off. So normally it would be Week 6 would be the Titans are playing in London. The theory would be that Week 7 will be whenever they have their bye.
We'll see if that holds true. That should be the case, but we will see. We know that this time around, under the new television deals, it's a crapshoot as to what they're on television-wise every week, and that not everyone has to have a Thursday night football game, although the Titans were stuck with 2 of them last year. Now, one thing I do know is that every game, every week, you can stop by right here at 104.5 The Zone, the flagship home of Titans Radio. We're always here.
Absolutely.
Regardless of where the games are played and when. All right, check the leaks. I'm going to run down a couple of things that we can anticipate seeing at Nissan Stadium this year in terms of new players, especially ones that were just drafted that were significant. And then when I'm finished, see if there's any new leaks that I've missed there. So, all right. We went geographically with who they have and who the home and away games are. So the home games, we will see Bijan Robinson and Arthur Smith back for the first time as head coach as the Atlanta Falcons come to town. So Bijan Robinson, the number 7 overall pick, the running back from Texas, will be there. And, of course, this is barring injuries or anything like that. We will potentially see the new-look Panthers as far as quarterback Bryce Young at the helm. And if that holds up being at Week 12, that's a very good possibility there. You mentioned life after Tom Brady and the Buccaneers on the road, and also the Derek-led Carr-led New York Saints, I should say. In the division, we're going to get the Anthony Richardson show. And the last 2 seasons, we've seen that the Titans have made early business and successful business with the Colts early on, and that was how they were able to win the division 2 years ago and could have done it had they not had the 7-game slide at the end of last season. Houston, the number 2 and 3 overall picks, C.J. Stroud, the quarterback from Ohio State, Will Anderson, the pass rusher from Alabama on defense, and our first look at D'Amico Ryans, who is now the head coach. And when I've been doing this long enough, I remember when D'Amico Ryans was a youngster out of Alabama as a linebacker to star for the Texans for many years before he went into coaching and was the DC at the 49ers. So those are just some thoughts about that. Any other leaks that I have missed or have come out since I have been running my gums here?
Well, and I was paying attention to Twitter and everything as you were talking the first time. I know that you talked about the Jaguars game. You were talking about the Week 18 game, right?
Yeah, and I did not mention that is one of the things I have seen leaked is that looks like Week 14 at Jacksonville, Week 18 at home at Nissan Stadium, which I certainly hope is the case because I think the last 4 seasons the Titans have finished on the road in the division.
Yeah, and that was why I was asking, was the Week 14 part of this, because I've heard about the Week 18, but it was the Week 14 that I was double checking with about the time that the Titans go on the road, because the away games, when you're paying attention to where and when the Titans will play, obviously with New Orleans, that's a dome. It doesn't matter. But you've got to go to Cleveland, to Pittsburgh. How late in the year is that? How much are you going to have to deal with sub-32-degree weather if you're going north? Same thing goes for the South. When are you going to Miami? When are you going to Tampa? I know that it's hot in Nashville.
Well, in those Jacksonville games, if that holds up at weeks 14 and 18, to your point, great, because you usually don't have weather issues there. You go too early, you could have a hurricane, you could have a lightning delay, yada, yada. And if the Pittsburgh game holds up at week 9, that's just 3 weeks after the London game. So that's not bad. It can be cool there, but I wouldn't think it would be bitterly cold. And it's not like we're going to Buffalo or something
week
like
14 right now, it means that it would happen around December 11th. Would be that game between the Jags and the Titans, unless it was going to be a Thursday night. So again, weather wouldn't be an issue for that.
Yep.
But as these leaks are coming out, that's where I start to wonder, because week 9, it'll still be warm in Pittsburgh if that leak is correct, so you don't have to worry about weather, possibly rain, but that's it.
Here's the other thing. It's been speculated with the leak that a Thursday Night Football week 9 game at Pittsburgh is one of the leaks in this. Could that week 14 at Jacksonville, could that be a primetime game? Because let's not forget, as much as it pains Titans fans to say, and me the same way, Jacksonville won the division. They have a young franchise quarterback. They've had, we can go over their ins and outs when we finish up the show tonight as to who they've added and who they lost. But that has a potential to be a primetime game right there.
Well, and so does the Week 18, depending, because then you start getting late into the season because of the flexing.
Right, and what it means for playoff implications for either team.
Absolutely, which is what we saw last season.
Right, exactly.
So you have multiple opportunities, but for some reason, and it may be because they've played that particular game so much, Jags-Titans Thursday night, we're used to seeing it.
I sure hope we don't have 2 Thursday night games, because that was a nightmare last season for this team and for Titans radio. It just makes it crazy.
What was it? 3 games in 11 days, I believe is what it was? Twice.
And that was both on the back half of the season, in the middle of the 7-game slide. It was not well, at the beginning of it anyway, because the last win they had was November 17th of last year at Green Bay. Well, and then they lost the last 7.
You mentioned it just a moment ago. You have 2 times where we played 3 games within 11 days, and there was only 1 time outside of the preseason where the Titans played back-to-back home games.
That's correct.
The schedule was not very in the Titans' favor throughout the entire season.
And I'm glad you said that too, because one other note, and then we're going to go to break and come back with Anthony Wooten across the pond in London to talk about this London game coming up on October 15th. I'm glad you brought this up, because you made me think. The Titans, if you hadn't heard, according to those in the know, have the 5th easiest schedule in 2023, as they are set to face just 3 teams this coming season that won at least 10 games in 2022, the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Chargers. Now, I know everybody out there that has them walking around says, okay, whatever, who cares? That doesn't mean anything. You're right. It potentially means nothing. But if the same trends happen and only a handful of those teams have winning records in this year, they've got an easier path to try to get to the playoffs, because we know the key is winning at home and winning in your division to get to that berth. So those thoughts in mind when we come back. Anthony Wooten, host of Transatlantic Sports Show and an NFL presenter for BBC. He is in London standing by to talk about Titans and Ravens at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. That is in London, England, Week 6, October 15th. That is when Joe Hunk and I continue on this countdown to the 2023 NFL schedule release here on 104.5 The Zone. 104.5 The Zone, your flagship home for Titans radio and the home of the Titans and Vols. Rhett, Bryan here as we are getting closer to the 2023 NFL regular season schedule dropping. More importantly, the Titans schedule dropping. All of that at the top of the hour. We're leading you into Westwood One's coverage of the entire league schedule reveal. We already know about one of those Titans games that dropped early Wednesday morning. It happens week 6, Sunday, October 15th at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London as Tennessee takes on Baltimore. And to get us up to speed, a friend in London, longtime friend of the broadcast, Anthony Wooten. He is the host of the Transatlantic Sports Show and is also an NFL presenter on BBC. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us despite the time difference. When the Titans played there in London, it was nearly 5 years to the day back in October of 2018 at Wembley. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium was still under construction. First of all, where is Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in relation to that part of London from Wembley?
London traffic.
Yeah.
However, where I live about 35 miles west, maybe northwest from London. On a good run, I can get to Wembley Stadium from my house, door to door, in the car, in about 45 minutes. There is a road that goes... It's called the North Circular around London. So it goes past Wembley Stadium, and it's probably another 20 minutes in the car from Wembley Stadium to where Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is. For fans who are going to be making the journey over here to London and staying in central London, I would say Tottenham it's going to take longer to get to, just because it hasn't got as many lines to make it as accessible as Wembley Stadium. And Wembley Stadium now is built and developed to host huge events. Of course, we get England soccer. You're going to see the FA Cup final coming from Wembley. Next year, the Champions League final is going to be back at Wembley Stadium in 2024. It's built for these huge events. You'll have seen the Euro 2020, which obviously happened in 2021, take place at Wembley Stadium. So it's geared up for that. And you've got multiple stations around there. At Tottenham, you've got White Hart Lane, which is the overground station that I said is pretty much across the road from it. And then you've got the Seven Sisters Stadium. I wouldn't recommend getting there by bus. You're probably either going to want to get a taxi up to Seven Sisters or as close to Tottenham Hotspur as possible. Otherwise, you're going to get the tube. And, who doesn't want to ride the underground? The tube is one of the London experiences. So you can get the tube from central London, the Victoria line. If you jump on at Oxford Circus, it's going to take you straight up to Seven Sisters. You're probably going to take about 20 minutes to get there. Like I said, I've been covering a lot of Tottenham games recently, and there's a certain train that I need to get back home. So I've always got my eye on my watch, and I've worked it out. And here's a little insight for you. If you time it just right, you can get into central London, like I said, within about 20 minutes. Expect a crowded train, but that's fine. Especially if the Titans win. Who cares? You're just here for a good time. Then you get off in central London at Oxford Circus, so you can go one stop down, you're towards Piccadilly Circus, and that's where all the fun is. That's where the bars are, and I'm sure that's where you're going to be, Rhett.
You're right. We definitely have to have a pint soon. That sounds interesting for those who are traveling and making plans to go this fall. With that in mind, what, Anthony, can Titans fans expect in terms of a stadium experience? Because we know that NFL stadiums sometimes are much different from venues in Europe.
Well, you're not going to have the tailgate as such, because it is in the middle of a residential area. So there's two ways, well, there's multiple ways that you can get there, but there are two train stations where you can get off to go. There's the underground, the tube, and you get off, it's on the Victoria line, and you get off at Seven Sisters, and it's about a 20-minute walk down to the stadium. And probably within half a mile radius of the stadium, they shut the road off, and then on the road there's all sorts of things going on. So there's a real party atmosphere, there's freebies, you'll be pleased to hear, handed out, all that kind of stuff to build up that festival of football. There's also White Hart Lane, which is an overground station. So if you don't want to walk that 20-minute walk from Seven Sisters, if you're getting the tube to Seven Sisters, you can walk up to the overground station, which is at Seven Sisters, and it's 2 stops, and you get off and you're 2 minutes. It's right there in front of you, but it's surrounded by streets and houses, so that's why there's no tailgate. But it really is a party atmosphere outside. As I say, they close the roads off, and we've been very, very fortunate recently. There's only been one game there where I recall rain. That was when it was the Buccaneers and the Panthers back in 2019, which was the second ever game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But we've been very fortunate. October tends to be a pretty good month over here. As some of you Titans fans will remember, October 21st, 2018, it was a red hot day at Wembley Stadium. This is a week earlier, October 15th over here. So it should be a pretty decent time of year. The leaves will be changing color, but outside the stadium, there's all sorts of events going on. As I said, there'll be food trucks. You can try your hand at various NFL activities. There'll be fan zones that you can go to. And then once you get inside the stadium, I mean, you can just enjoy the structure. There's going to be plenty of stuff going on within the stadium. They've got big screens in all the corners of the stands, so you're not going to miss any of the action. As I say, once the action starts, you're sitting pretty much on top of it, and you will feel it. They'll dress it up with all the Titans colors, and thankfully, the seats are very, very similar to the Titans colors. It's a navy blue seating, so you're going to feel like it is a home from home, and it's the atmosphere within there it's like a festival of football. I was very fortunate this year to go to the Super Bowl at Glendale, and what struck me at the Super Bowl was that the atmosphere was very similar to what we experience over here in London, in that you have fans of different teams. You'll see all the colors, all the jerseys of all 32 NFL teams there, and everybody is there for a good time. It's going to be a real festival. Of course, there's going to be Titans fans. You guys are going to be coming over. There's UK-based Titans fans. There's European-based Titans fans. So you're going to find that there's not just going to be British and Tennessee fans at the game. There's going to be fans coming over from Scandinavia. It's a popular destination for Scandinavian football fans. German fans, despite them having games in Germany, they come over. France, Spain. It's a real culture, and the atmosphere is just fun. Everybody is there to enjoy football.
And Anthony, this is the first building, I think, in the world that was designed for football that you guys call football soccer and North American NFL football, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's the first specifically designed NFL stadium outside of the U.S. It was built back in 2019. It was expected to be opened in 2018 when the Titans came over, actually, to London, but various reasons prolonged or delayed the development of it. But I tell you what, it is a stadium like no other. It's 4 years old now, but it's still state of the art. I think other stadium designs are being modeled on the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's a unique spectacle. This Premier League season, I've been very fortunate to cover Tottenham Hotspur games there. So I've seen soccer football being played there and NFL, and you've probably seen the footage of, they've got the NFL turf underneath the soccer turf. So the soccer pitch, the grass goes under. So when you're watching soccer games or NFL games at Tottenham, on the right hand side there's it's the south stand. It's the big sloping stand, and they got the golden cockerel at the top on the roof. Underneath there, the turf goes underneath, the grass goes underneath. It can stay under there for I think 23, 26 days, and then underneath is the turf, the NFL turf. And it's the way that they've designed it. There is not a bad seat in the house. So Titans fans, when you're coming over to London and you kind of cheer your team on as the home team at Tottenham, you are going to be in for a treat. It's almost like a bowl feel all the way around. You can sit as high as you want. You still feel as if you're on top of the action and close to the action. It's special. There's something very, very special.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Anthony Wooten joins us here on 104.5 The Zone. He's the host of the Transatlantic Sports Show, and he's also an NFL presenter on BBC. Anthony, quick question I'm just thinking about as you're talking. This sport is growing so much in Europe and London, Germany, etc. What are the schedule reveals like there? They dropped those NFL international games this week. Is it as big as it's becoming here?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. This week we had the NFL, Europe games, I guess you want to say, because we had the 3 London games and the 2 Germany games. Everybody was eagerly anticipating. You go on social media early in the morning and it's like 5 hours and people are sending out memes of like, people looking at their watches and we can't wait, is it 12 o'clock yet? People were so hungry, and fans who don't get their teams coming over here are so despondent because we're just desperate for our teams to come over. We want to see football. Unfortunately, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars twice this year, but that's okay. But, we get the Titans coming over, man, and we get to see Derrick Henry again. We get to see Ryan Tannehill, hopefully, and it's just amazing. It's great fun, and there is so much excitement around the London games. When the home teams were announced, there was just as much as excitement. So once we discovered that the Bills and the Titans and, of course, the Jags were hosting games over here, they were going to be the home teams, suddenly there's a surge of interest, people going online, registering their interest for the games. And then Germany now, even for NFL London fans, Germany is a destination for fans to go to because it's a new experience. It's a new experience, but they can enjoy football because I tell you, your sport, this NFL, is growing massively over here. It is absolutely loved. I've been very fortunate to cover the London games for the past decade. And you'll notice it when you come over later this year, 5 years removed from your last visit. The knowledge of the fans over here has grown exponentially year after year after year. We have the NFL Academy over here, which is it's set up for 16 to 19-year-olds. And we have ambassadors such as Odell Beckham Jr. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, he's going to be playing for the Ravens, isn't he? But, we have players of that caliber who are ambassadors for these youngsters over here. It's a growing sport. And you're going to see probably in the next 5 years, you can mark my words, in the next 5 years, there will be a European player who developed through the NFL Academy, then went on to college, be drafted in the NFL draft.
I'm so glad that you mentioned this because I was going to ask you about that in a moment. Clearly, the popularity of the NFL has grown over the years with the additional games that the NFL starts to add every year. In fact, the fact of them putting prime games in these places is a prime example of what we're talking about. I mean, one of the best games on the Titans schedule is the Ravens and the Titans. That's now in London. The other one I would think of is, Kansas City and Tyreek Hill and the Miami Dolphins. That won't happen in Kansas City. That's going to happen in Germany. But it sounds like the fans are beginning to understand the more finite parts of the game, rules of the game, and so on, now that they've had a steady diet of that in person. Would that be correct to assume?
Oh, absolutely they are. You know that they're over here in London in July. There's a group of fantasy-minded people who have set up a fantasy football day. And people are paying good money to attend and talk fantasy football. And they've got speakers. But they're not American speakers. These are UK minds. These are UK minds who have publications in fantasy football because they are so dedicated to it. And the football minds over here, I was at the Super Bowl in Arizona. I flew out the Saturday before. So we saw the teams arrive the Sunday before. I was there all week. And there is an army of UK-based designated NFL reporters for press, obviously for TV, for radio, digital media. The consumption is huge over here. So much so that we now have an NFL UK general manager. The guy who has come over and recently appointed as the head of the NFL Academy. If you want to check it out, then please look up the Transatlantic Sports Show on YouTube and you can see my interview with him, a guy called Lamont Winston. And he was involved in player personnel as recently as 2016, 2019, I want to say, maybe 2018. But anyways, he was part of player personnel for the then Oakland Raiders. He came over with the Raiders in 2014 and one of the other years that they were over here. Before that, he was with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's coached at college over there. And now he is leading the way for these youngsters at the NFL Academy. That is the attraction. That is the lure of London. And the NFL, honestly, fans now on the television broadcasts, broadcasters have got to be very careful on making it too dumb for the audience. It's no longer a niche sport. The audience no longer needs to be told the rules. What they want now is to fuel their knowledge of the game. So you've got to dive deeper in the way that you present it. People want that. It's suddenly, through the digital age and the powers of technology, it is so much more accessible. I get NFL Network. I can watch games on NFL Network. I have the NFL Game Pass, so I can watch any game on a Sunday. The games that are broadcast on the main broadcasters over here, the rights holders, they're blacked out. But any other game, it's that you want, be midday games over in Nashville. They're 6 o'clock in the evening over here. There's a huge audience. There's a huge appetite for it. And people stay up, man. They stay up. Those Sunday night football games, it's like they kick off at 1:25, 1:20 in the morning. They're up, and they're up through the night, and they're going to work the next day. But it's no longer a cult sport. It's huge. It's one of the biggest growing sports, absolutely, over here. And like I say, you're going to hear it. You're going to see it. People, when it gets to third down, people are going to know the plays. They're going to read the field. They're not just going to be sat there. Of course, there are going to be people who are going to go, and lots of corporate people go because it's a fun event. But the vast majority of people that are going to be there are fans, and they know your game.
Wow. The power of the National Football League. Fans know what to do on third down. There's some places here in the United States you can't say that same thing for. Hey, Anthony Wooten, thank you for joining us, host of the Transatlantic Sports Show. He's an NFL presenter on BBC. Great perspective from across the pond. On the way, when we get closer to the 2023 NFL regular season schedule drop, Joe Hunk and I return with some more tidbits, possible leaks, and things to consider as the regular season schedule approaches at the top of the hour. Stand by. Welcome back. 104.5 The Zone with a little pre-scheduled show here with Joe Hunk, Rhett, Bryan here on the home for the Titans and the Vols. Titan schedule drops here in just over 10 minutes. The NFL regular season schedule also drops at that same time. In fact, we were leading you into Westwood One's coverage of the league-wide release, hosted by Westwood One's Scott Graham. He will take that up at 7 o'clock. So, Joe, here's what we've got. At Mr. Two-Tone on Twitter, thank you for sending this to me. He quote tweeted and sent me a picture of at NFL Beasy with a rumored, air quotes here for those on Zone TV, Titans schedule. Let's see. I'm interested to see in a few minutes how much, if this holds up once at 7 o'clock, everything drops. All right. So it says rumored schedule for Titans not confirmed. Well, yeah, no kidding. But I see things in here that I think are correct, so we'll see what happens. All right, week 1 at New Orleans. That's what we said at the top of the hour. That has been leaked out by several New Orleans media folks that the Titans would start 2023 on the road at the Superdome to take on the Saints at noon kick. Week 2, noon kick again, home against the Los Angeles Chargers. We'll see if that holds up. Week 3, at Cleveland, noon kick. Week 4, Cincinnati at home, noon kick. And again, this is a rumored schedule. I'm just reading what is a leak here. We'll see if this holds up at all. Week 5 at Indianapolis, noon kick. So that's one thing that's consistent in this is, first of all, you don't have your first division game if this holds true till week 5, but all of them are noon kicks on Sunday. I like that.
Not a fan of the week 5 being your first division game.
No, but I like the consistency of a noon Sunday because, hey, listen, Coach Vrabel he's a big on schedule and things the same and creatures of habit kind of thing. He's really good at getting the team prepared for those things. Week 6 we know is October 15th at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against the Baltimore Ravens. That will begin here on the Zone that day on October 15th at 8:30 Central Time. So the award-winning Titans Countdown presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans should be about 7:30 for that prior to. And then, of course, we'll have pregame even earlier than that morning. Week 7, if it holds true, and that it has been the case that if you play in London, the following week is your bye. So that's what's being said here. Week 8 versus Atlanta, noon. So that's Arthur Smith and Bijan Robinson coming to town. Week 9 at Pittsburgh, Thursday Night Football, 7:15 kick on November 2nd. We'll see if that holds true. Week 10 at Tampa, noon. Week 11 at Jacksonville, noon. So back-to-back Florida trips right there. In fact, 3 straight road trips if this holds true in week 9, 10, and 11. Week 12 versus Carolina, noon kick. So, again, that is something that's been reported by multiple people. Week 13, Colts at home. That's on December the 3rd, noon kick. We'll see if that's true. And then one that started to be leaked and said a lot about is another primetime game outside of the Thursday night reported or leaked game in week 9. This says at Miami, Monday Night Football. And that would be December the 11th. That is true that they have 3 Florida road trips, but they're saying the final one of those would be week 14, December the 11th, Monday Night Football. We'll see if that happens. Week 15, Houston at home, December the 17th. That's a noon kick. Seattle at home, back-to-back home games. If this holds true, noon kick on Christmas Eve. Then at Houston on New Year's Eve, noon kick. And then they're saying versus Jacksonville, date and time to be determined. So we'll see if any of that is correct, as we are now about 7 minutes away from the schedule drop. Less than that, almost 6 minutes.
Well, and looking, if this schedule is correct that we've been sent, then the thing I don't like is I don't like seeing Indianapolis until week 5, because part of what you're looking at so early in the season, we talked about 45 minutes ago, was you get Derek Carr beginning of the season with New Orleans. They don't really know the offense. By week 5, Anthony Richardson, if he is the starter, is going to have a better grasp of the offense than he would if you were getting him within that first month of the regular season. That's the first thing that I look at now.
No, and I think you're right, because you want to get Indy as early as often as you can, because he's a rook learning this game. And I don't know how he is by week 5, and it remains to be seen. But I still like it's that early in the regular season if that's the case.
Well, and look at all the other quarterbacks that you're potentially going to be seeing that may be starters for the very first time that you are going to see. You get Carolina late in the season. That's going to be after Thanksgiving. You're going to be getting, like we talked about, Anthony Richardson. You don't get him a second time until into December. Houston, C.J. Stroud, if he is the starter in Houston, then your second game is going to be the last game of the regular season, but you go and you try to find and you play him for the first time, and the first time you see him isn't going to be until December 17th. So the advantages that you could have of getting in and taking on some of these young quarterbacks or quarterbacks in a new system early, you're not getting that advantage. Because New Orleans outside of Derek, you're going to see Justin Herbert in week 2. And then Cincinnati coming into town. That's Joe Burrow, again, established quarterback that knows the system. The Baltimore game in week 6, the international game, if that's the case, we absolutely know this one is confirmed. You know what you're getting in Lamar Jackson by week 6. They should know the new offense.
And if he's healthy, which he hasn't been past December the 10th or 11th the last 2 seasons, but he's generally healthy that early on. Yeah, you know what you're getting there.
Yes, and then even look at Atlanta. We think it's going to be Ritter's going to be the quarterback there, but they also signed Heineke. So depending on what goes on in that one, you may have a quarterback change there, but it would be at least a quarterback that is learning the new system. With Tampa, you are getting a brand new quarterback there because Tom Brady has retired. You don't get them until November as well. So any kind of advantage that you could say because
in Tampa, that's Blake. I'm sorry, Blake, bro. What am I saying? Good Lord. Who's the quarterback there now?
It's not Matthew Stafford because Stafford's still in L.A.
It's what's his name? Who was the quarterback at Oklahoma who was at Cleveland, went to Carolina? Baker Mayfield. Yeah, yes. He's one of them.
So, and that's where I just look at small advantages like that. The positives, if this schedule is correct, you go to Cleveland in week 3, so it's not going to be too cold. Pittsburgh in November at the very beginning of it, not going to be terribly cold. It'll be a little bit chilly. But other than that, those are some of your other ones. Your
furthest trip west, if this holds true, is week 17 at Houston on New Year's Eve at a noon game. Now, again, the other thing we should say is that all of these games, if it holds true with so many noon games, are subject to being flexed. So we'll see what happens as trends, continue through the league and teams get hot and cold and all those kinds of things. But if this schedule holds up, then it would be an international game and 2 primetime games, which is interesting. And you're right. It looks like, again, if this @Beezy, whoever that is on Twitter, is right, you'd have back-to-back home games in the back half of the regular season there. So, which is something that the Titans didn't have but one time last year?
Right. And it was one time in the regular season that they had that, which was week 15 and 16 against Houston and against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And you have those. Now, here's the other thing about this that isn't going to get talked about until we actually see the first photos of this, the new playing surface. Normally in December and even in November, and you start to see how that playing surface at Nissan Stadium starts to change. You're not going to see that this year. So these games at home later on in the season, you're going to have the same turf in November and December you had.
Because artificial turf is coming in 2023. That's a great point. And it's just something they've had trouble growing grass at Nissan Stadium that late in the year, mainly the entire time the team has been here.
Yes.
For whatever reason. And as we get closer to wrapping up here, any final thoughts? I'm excited. I'm always like this day. I'm always excited to see what actually plays out. If that plays out good, I like that schedule. Okay.
The biggest thing that I enjoy and that I'm excited about is that week 2 matchup against the Chargers. If that does hold true September 17th, because this Chargers team could arguably be the fastest in the NFL. And historically with the Titans, the injury bug begins to start to hit them late. You're a fully healthy team that Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel have focused on getting healthy
and getting faster.
Yes.
That's right.
That will be your first true test. How fast are you? How good are you? How healthy are you? And you get it week 2 of the regular season if this schedule is correct.
This has been fun and a quick hour.
Very quick hour.
Hey, thanks to Anthony Wooten. He's a longtime friend, host of the Transatlantic Sports Show. He's also a presenter of the NFL for BBC. Big time of him to join us from London despite the time difference. On the way, the Westwood One coverage of the 2023 regular season schedule drop with host Scott Graham here on 104.5 The Zone.